On a related subject, Signore Pazzi, I must confess to you, I'm giving serious thought to eating your wife.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television. Hannibal.
A novel.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Hello there. Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books, especially this time. I don't know. I'm J.W. Chianti Friedman.
Ooh, and I'm Chris Collision, in like a quiet lion, out like a loud lamb.
Stop them from bleeding, please.
Yeah.
Bleating, I should say. I need to enunciate correctly because we're talking about one of the most pompous books we've ever discussed on this show, which is ironic because it's also one of the basest and most disgusting, yet remains convinced of its own importance. It is the seminal horror work Hannibal by some guy whose name I don't remember.
Thomas Harris.
Yeah, as per usual, I've forgotten the name of the person responsible for the junk we're reading. Thomas Harris. And, this is, for those who don't know, this is about Hannibal Lecter, a.k.a. Hannibal the Cannibal, who became the basis for Silence of the Lambs, and characters from this also are in Red Dragon, which is based on another book from this series, as well as the TV series Clarice, which, from everything I've heard, is not worth watching.
What about that TV show Hannibal? Did you ever watch that? I never did.
Yeah. I think that was based on this, too.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's gross, and I don't like it.
Fair. I mean, I know it's based on that. I was just wondering if you'd seen it and if it's good. I have not seen it.
It was good. It's better than anything else inspired by this that I've seen. And I know a lot of people listening to this probably like it, but for me, I had a really hard time because there's a lot of juxtapositions of gore in food, which is my least favorite visual language, as it were. My love language, by the way, is pictures of round animals.
Ah, okay. and your extreme distaste language, food juxtaposed with gore, which makes a lot of sense. No less than William Burroughs mentioned that. That's what naked lunch refers to.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hey, looks like I'm in good company. I made air quotes for everyone at home who couldn't see that. So before we get started on this, just a brief chat here. I've been through some changes in my life, over the last few months, and it's been a real voyage of self-discovery. There's been a lot of introspection, and one of the things that I've realized is that I think at the heart of it, I'm a much kinder and more compassionate person than I ever really gave myself credit for or felt comfortable expressing. And as a result, I think I was a little worried about getting the show, back and running, because I didn't know if I still had it in me when it came to just being straight up mean about an awful book. Last episode was a lot of fun.
That, by the way, that thing you're so known for.
Yeah. But the last episode was a lot of fun, but it was a little bit of a softball because we got to talk about glam metal, hair rock, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that's fun. And with this one rolling around, I was like, oh, man, I don't know if I can do it. I had initially started reading this book way back before our hiatus. And
let's call it The Dark Times.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Yeah, the dark days. And I had, kind of checked out from how it felt to read this book.
Yeah.
And returning to it, skimming over what I already read and finished it, I now can say with absolute certainty that what I needed was for the right book to come along. Because I am absolutely ready to tell all of you at home what a terrible dog shit book this is.
Yeah, season 2 of IDEO TV, J.W. Friedman pops the clutch and tells authors to kiss his ass.
No, seriously. This author can, in the parlance, get the Bozak. This is absolute junk. I hated it so much. Ugh, such a strong word, but it's true.
Yeah, rarely, I think, do we agree quite as vehemently. This one, all I could think when I was reading it was that famous Roger Ebert review of North, where he's just like, I hated this movie. Hated it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just a glimpse behind the curtain. I feel like both of us are people who really appreciate a turn of a phrase. I'm a big fan of be strong and precise with your word. And, I like the things that I send in text to reflect the way I talk. And I just wanted to excerpt this brief part of a conversation today that happened on text where I said, I'll see you tonight. I absolutely despise this book, by the way. And you replied with, dude, it's so bad. I think that's a very accurate glimpse into both of our reactions.
Yeah, so I guess if we had a formal review segment, that would pretty much be it.
Yeah. But I guess before we go on to talk about how much we didn't like this, we should talk about what's in the book. So, it's now time for, I'm gonna play the plot in indefinite seconds, plot in indeterminate seconds, whatever, because this book, in addition to many things, is a clusterfuck, and there's absolutely no way you're summarizing it in 60 seconds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The other thing that we should mention, and I know I drop this a lot, this book be long. This book, many pages in it.
Yeah.
This book, so many words.
Yeah, it's like 6 books in one.
Yeah.
All of them are bad. Anyway, here's a song.
Sometimes we just want to summarize a book to you, but a time limit, man, it just won't do. So here's a plot summary segment, generic plot summary segment, in an undetermined number of seconds.
And I'm going to apologize because you will need to have some familiarity with what I like to think of as the Hannibal textual universe, the HTU. The events of previous books, not so much Red Dragon, which basically didn't happen, near as I can tell, in the world of this particular book. But this book plays very, very much on The Silence of the Lambs. Perhaps you've read the book. Perhaps you've seen the hit film. If you haven't, probably not one page of this book is going to register with you, and probably not that many minutes of this podcast. So, anywho, be warned about that.
And I'm going to just jump in here to give you the NPR quiz warning, which is those listening at home may want to grab a pen and a pad of paper.
Yeah, that's a... Thank you for the Quizmaster, which I guess is no longer going to be joined by Lourdes Garcia Navarro. I guess she is moving on to another career. So, fingers crossed that they got my tape.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm the foil that Will Shorts needs. So we're going to have to fight over that.
Oh my God,
one.
our first fight.
They call me Jay Freeds with a Z.
Whoa.
Okay, so are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
And begin.
Clarice Starling, who you may remember as a plucky, dogged investigator who understands what it's like to be hard scrabble and underestimated, is now a cynical jerk and the world's greatest pistol shot. And she's gotten jammed up on a bad shooting in which a guy who wanted to sleep with her but was nice about it got killed. Not her fault. Hannibal Lecter, who you may remember as a manipulative monster, is now the smartest man alive, devoted to the study of Italian literature, until a disgraced Italian cop clocks him and sells him out to a victim from the past, Mason Verger, or Verger, don't care. The world's greatest, pig industrialist?
Yeah.
I guess?
I believe it. No, he's not the pig master. He has a pig master.
Yeah, he employs dozens of pig masters around the globe. That's not a joke.
Don't worry, this won't make sense later.
Mason Verger has a comic book complicated scheme for revenge. He also has a sister who is an absurdly grotesque caricature of a lesbian that alone makes this book a pretty bad experience for a 2021 reader. Lecter is also a henpecked and worried man of taste who basically can't even with our degraded and mannersless culture, as evidenced by his turning up his nose at airline food. Pause for laughter in a knowing I relate to that manner. Verger and his henchmen kidnap Lecter on their second or third try. Savvy readers will understand I just skipped ahead about 400 pages. And Clarice Starling rescues Hannibal Lecter.
Yep.
I'm going to say that again. Clarice Starling rescues Hannibal Lecter. He then hypnotizes her into loving him as a replacement for her father, so he can have a replacement for his dead sister, and Clarice and Hannibal live happily ever after, including going to the opera. The end? Question mark?
Wow, that sounds really bad.
I want to take the reader behind my mind curtain, so let's take a trip into my mind palace. My theory is this. Thomas Harris saw that a book he wrote got turned into a very, famous and popular movie. He saw that people really seemed to love some of his indelible creations, and he decided, fuck them people. I'm going to piss all over my indelible creations, take away everything you liked about them, and then turbo fuck them by the end of this book. That's my only theory. And okay, since I'm audibly a little pissed off about it, I guess you win, dude, if that makes you feel good or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. I have never seen Silence of the Lambs. I never liked gore as a young man, and it just wasn't one of those movies I felt I really was missing out if I didn't go back and watch. And I also haven't read the first book, but, existing in humanity has provided me with a pretty decent working knowledge of the character Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
And this book did not seem to deliver on any of my expectations, and not in a good way. In a, we're just going to keep this name and make a different guy. Oh, he eats people. That's the same. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck happened. I know for a fact that Silence of the Lambs was not a love story.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No. You've got that right. I mean, this book definitely is building on what you could kind of call an intimacy in the previous book.
Gotcha.
But as people who have friends and family know, not every intimate relationship is necessarily a sexual relationship.
Yeah, and they don't need to be.
No.
That's what this book taught me.
In fact, if you have friends and family, you might argue some of them probably shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim Morrison, if you're listening, I know that kind of came out of left field for you.
Stop being an asshole.
Yeah, we probably should have given you a heads up that little, home truth was coming down the pike.
What was that about an hour ago? Yeah, so, to jump back into it, this is a distasteful read on many levels, and we're going to drill down a lot more on high points and low points. But before we get there, I just wanted to point out, in case it hasn't been made abundantly clear, this book is filled with very distasteful things, and you shouldn't read it. And
if you do, you probably won't like it. Been there. So, but I'm not going to feel sorry for you if you go forth and read it.
I started reading this book before I actually noted the publishing date. And I was convinced this came out in 1984, 1985 or something, maybe late 80s, until about page 200 when I got curious and checked, I think because they mentioned a zip drive.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is way too late to have the attitude and positioning that it does. The first chapter is fucking bonkers with it's like you could fill out a bingo card with the shit you don't want to read in a book with just stuff that happens in the first chapter.
Actually, I did. Yeah. Do you mind if we just kind of go through that first chapter for a second?
Sure.
Because I think that is just kind of, what's the opposite of fun?
Yeah. Agony?
Yeah. Because it is legit jarring, the sheer number of shit that I flagged as, I don't want to read this.
Yeah.
Just in the first couple of things. First off, it's the kind of chapter where every non-white character's race is immediately specified.
Yep.
Which is something that I sometimes hear people do, and I'm always flummoxed by. A wise friend of mine suggested that I, without any, abruptness or malice or anything, just quietly say, I'm sorry, why is that relevant? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything you're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's just kind of go through it. First off, it has what I think is one of the legendarily worst first lines of any novel.
Oh, good.
Clarice Starling's Mustang boomed up the entrance ramp at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms on Massachusetts Avenue, a headquarters rented from the Reverend Sun Young Moon in the interest of economy.
Facts.
Wow, so relevant. I really feel like I'm there listening to a tour guide tell me shit I don't think I care about.
Wait till we get to Italy, man.
God damn.
But yeah, my first reaction to reading that was, oh, she drives a Mustang, of course.
Yes. Okay, that's another thing. I meant to mention this. So two things I meant to get into the old plot in 60. Number one, both Clarice and Hannibal Lecter have in the interim between the last book and this book become sports car hot rod fans.
It's pretty jarring. Like, you can tell it's just something the author is into.
Yeah, like Hannibal Lecter, noted vroom vroom enthusiast.
Yeah, he's got a Bentley and a Jaguar.
And a souped up Jag. I think it's specified at some point like it's supercharged. That's not turbocharged. You idiot.
There's an
you
amazing
asshole. There's a fucking difference, and if you don't respect that fucking difference, like, it's insane.
There's an amazing scene towards the end where Hannibal first sees Clarice's new car, and it talks about him mouthing the words Momo as he read it on her bumper, which I was just like, this is such obnoxious car guy bullshit.
Yeah, well, at least it's better than the thing where he breaks into her car so he can
lick the steering wheel. Yeah, I even wrote down, like, one of my notes, and I hate to just read off notes, but this is exactly something I wrote down, is the fundamental dichotomy of a man who's characterized as a serious gourmand as well as a germaphobe who also loves to lick steering wheels.
Okay, first off, that's a great point. Second, can we just never say lick steering wheels again?
Oh, well.
That would really be okay with me. Oh, fuck. Did I just like...
There goes all of my segments. What is your fave steering wheel to lick?
I'm glad that it's just the segments. I was worried that it was like, well, there goes my new EP.
Oh, yeah. Well, Lickin' Wheels, my awesome new band. God. Some might call it a devious lick.
Aww.
That's right, kids. I know things.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to skip a little bit ahead in the chapter. Pop quiz hotshot. Is Clarice Starling's body described instantly? Ding, ding, ding. Yes, it is. Is she slender in her fatigues? Ding, ding, ding. That's what she is.
Is her musculature taut? I believe so.
Is her hair shining? You betcha. Okay, first line of dialogue. Women. Always late. This is the second page.
Officer Jim, tough guy, looked down the sights of his sniper rifle and exclaimed, "Women be shopping."
Yeah, and in case we didn't quite get the point about Clarice, FBI Special Agent Clarice Starling, 32, always looked her age, and she always made that age look good, even in fatigues. So this book is now apparently hitting on its own character, but like incomprehensibly. Like, that's something that somebody says to you at a bar, and you're like, what?
Yeah, seriously. It's either that or like a L'Oreal commercial, one or the other.
Yeah. What else do we have?
Oh, we've got a great gang name. A great white person invented a gang name. They're called the Spliffs.
Oh, God.
I even, there's a little bit of realism thrown in here because it turns out the Spliffs are working with the Crips. And there's a great passage about that I'm trying to pull up right here. This is very important world building. She's got Crip security, our guy says, and the Crips are distributing on the coast. It's security against the Spliffs. Like, security against the Spliffs is also my straight edge band's album.
And I wish you well, especially, in your desire to protect yourself against not only a notorious drug that mostly makes you like mildly hungry and kind of mellow,
right?
But number two, the spliff is a notoriously fussy delivery system for it. It's like, hey kid, yeah? You like rolling joints? Sure. You like rolling joints and breaking cigarettes and mixing them together and then like rolling up a piece of cardboard real small as to a bad fake filter? You bet I do, mister. Well, then great.
Drugs are hard.
Yeah, exactly. Combining the great taste of like mild hallucinogens and depressants with needing to have good fine motor skills. Just what I personally am looking for in a drug experience.
Now, you're playing them off lightly, but I think you've just forgotten about, the late 80s, the huge conflict between, it was bloody, between the Spliffs and the Bongs.
Yeah. Oh, that was just ugly. And thoughts and prayers to anybody who lost somebody in the shit.
So many white dreads all over the streets.
Yeah. The 311 wars were tough on us all as a nation.
They couldn't be down forever.
So we're still in the first thing. I'm going to skip most of it, but I do have to just, at exactly 4%, I'm reading it on an electronic reader, and at exactly 4%, I realized the character named Clarice Starling in this book bears some dramatic differences from the character named Clarice Starling from the last book, as when she's asked about her gun, which, is it described lovingly? You fucking betcha. And her response is, cocked and locked, every minute of my day. Like, the only thing she doesn't do is affirmatively refer to the suspects as either perps or shitbirds.
Yeah, at some point in the interim between the other book and this one, and admittedly, I didn't read the first one, but once again, knowing pop culture to some extent, I did not get the impression that Clarice was a merc.
Yeah. Or like
a CSI character.
Yeah, she's gone all shit kicker on us, and it's not a good look.
Cocked and locked every second of my day. It's not very safe either. Just wanted to throw that. Oh, I think a character even mentions that, and he goes, "For her, it is." Good stuff. Yeah, it's full of bad shit, and yeah. I just felt like it was such a good introduction to the world of this book, because you know exactly how distasteful and borderline hateful everything that you read after it is going to be.
And frequently, straight past hateful, because we haven't even gotten to the fact that it ends with a literal explosion of violence and many, many people dead that I believe leads the tabloid of the novel's world to put an FBI agent on their cover, which, definitely I see every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, it was Lindsay Wagner the last time I went to the store, but, whatever, same thing. With the caption, FBI's Angel of Death.
In our National Enquirer standing called the National Tattler, which in this world has delivery people who throw it at your door. And FBI members subscribe to it so they can catch the latest dirt on themselves.
Right.
There's one thing that we forgot.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like
many things we forgot.
But this one is very important for setting the tone here, is that this entire dramatic raid and subsequent shootout that leads in the Angel of Death headlines is scored in the world of this book to Macarena, which is blaring on one of the gangster stereos, because that's a thing that happened a lot.
Oh, the Spliffs fucking loved the Macarena.
Actually, the Spliffs might. You never know. They showed up in the Venga bus, and it was on. But, I mean, the author goes out of his way at least every couple pages to remind you that Macarena is still playing. I don't know if he thought that was ironic or whether he thought it was cool, but either way, it didn't need to happen.
Yeah, with the general emotional and tenor and the taste displayed in the rest of the book, I'm going to guess that every time Thomas Harris heard the Macarena, he was like, I would like to shoot 8 people now.
Probably, yeah. Somebody check on this man, because I don't think he's well, if he's still alive. Let's do high points, low points, I guess.
Oh, do we have to?
High points are high, and low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
Well, actually, before we do high points, low points, let's talk about high points, low points, because I think this is the first time both of us have sincerely asked one another if it was possible to opt out of high points entirely.
Exactly. Real heads will know usually the difficulty is winnowing down the low points to just 2 apiece. And, it's not usually impossible to identify a couple of high points, but this time, this was just a little more work than I'm interested in putting into my recreation, kids.
By about halfway through the book, I was like, well, I'm this far. I still haven't liked anything. And I kept thinking like, a couple pages from now, there's going to be some small thing I can bring up as a high point. And the only stuff I managed to salvage is, well, you'll see.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got to start out with some high points. Should I go first or should you?
Why don't you go first?
So my first high point is very much one of these situations where things go so far that they become a parody of themselves, And with that being said, after about, 450 fucking pages of this book, I felt like I had a pretty firm grasp on its author's style. So when he occasionally went even further beyond the pale than usual and kind of wandered into that uncanny valley, it became very entertaining to me. And one of those moments was Hannibal Lecter returning to the United States from Italy, where he's been hiding out. One of the first things he does is buy a bunch of expensive things, of course, on a credit card, as you do. And two of the things that he buys...
It's called retail therapy, Jay. Are you
it even says Hannibal Lecter loved to shop.
Are you really going to deprive this man of that simple pleasure just because he has some activities that he enjoys that you don't, like killing and eating human beings?
Like all of literature's greatest monsters, he's described as Hannibal Lecter loved shopping. But yeah, he buys a harpsichord and a theremin, and it's described thusly. The theremin had long fascinated Dr. Lecter. He had built one as a child. It is played with gestures of the empty hands in an electronic field. By gesture, you evoke its voice. And that made me guffaw out loud.
This is incredible because my first high point was literally the shopping scene that immediately follows this.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we better go right there.
Yeah. So it's all downhill after the theremin, though. That literally is the high point of the entire book. Because my second high point was that he plays the theremin spookily later in the book. And I did not quite burst out laughing. It was too late at night. I was too tired. I was too angry at this dumb book. But I came close. I did crack a smile. I will admit that. So immediately after the shopping scene that you described is another shopping scene. He drove to Hammacher Schlemmer, where it is explicitly stated that he, quote, took his time. He buys a picnic basket. Couple paragraphs later, in successive stops at Tiffany and Christoffle, the doctor was able to replace the heavy picnic plates with Glen French china, blah, 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 fucking blah. Several more paragraphs where we find out what kind of placemats and napkins he likes.
So now we know exactly what is going to be on his wedding registry.
Yeah. He buys 2 good, mind you, portable gas burners, a copper saute pan, and some other stuff. He couldn't find carbon steel kitchen knives. So not only is this the kind of shopping spree where you find out what he's getting, but you're finding out what he's not getting.
And the carbon steel kitchen knives becomes a runner in the shopping life of Hannibal Lecter, which occupies 100 pages.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. And so the savvy listener will have guessed that maybe by now the second straight shopping spree depicted in lavish detail, I might be getting a little bored. But then we swerve into this. His last stop was a medical supply company not far from Mercy General Hospital, where he found a bargain in a nearly brand new Stryker autopsy saw, which strapped down neatly in his picnic hamper where the thermos used to go. It was still under warranty, and came with general purpose and cranial blades, as well as a skull key to nearly complete his batterie de cuisine. And at that moment, I was like, fuck, this guy is actually really good at some stuff when he wants to be and when he's trying, because that, freaked the fuck out of me.
Yeah, it did, although it falls apart under scrutiny because I can't think of too many murderers out there who are really interested in warranty coverage for their weapon of choice.
I mean, he's a monster, Jay. He's not wasteful. He's not a dummy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
The only thing we don't...
He is the most bougie villain of probably all time, and yeah.
The only thing we don't get is him deciding to kill a clerk at Best Buy for trying to upsell him to the 3-year extended warranty program.
Hannibal Lecter would not show you his receipt.
No. Hannibal Lecter is not interested in your no highs, no lows, gotta be bows. No, he has exacting audio specifications. And if you can't meet them, he will take his business elsewhere.
He's definitely an audiophile. He's bought some of those rocks that you put on top of your turntable.
He's got that 180 gram lifestyle.
Yeah. Ooh, flipping through records, Hannibal Lecter settled upon one that caught his fancy. Ooh, a 180-gram repress of Nevermind.
He thought back to the record store day where he'd picked this one up.
Ooh, this is way more entertaining than the actual book. I was wondering, like, how many bespoke subscription services do you think Hannibal would subscribe to if he was still around?
Oh God, would modern Hannibal be in like some version of like Blue Apron just for truly fancy people, like Red Apron, I guess?
I'm constantly, Facebook thinks I'm someone I'm not, so I'm constantly getting ads for like gourmet beef jerky subscription kits, which, you know, brings to mind many important questions like who the fuck wants a box of beef jerky every month? But I figure he would be like in something like that for Pate, or maybe he just reads Goop. Who knows?
He's writing in again. Like, dear Gwyneth,
This guy,
please, your saucier editor must be fired.
this guy won't stop talking about red wine. We don't sell it.
This guy doesn't know a bechamel from a bouillabaisse.
Okay. Low points. You know, I mean, I think we've hit on the big ones, so I'm going to get into some of my. Well, they aren't nitpicks really. My first low point is that this book is extremely gross.
Well, yeah.
I grew up reading Stephen King and all of those guys, you know, Peter Straub, and you know, I'm not opposed to gore in any way, like, and I'm not normally very sensitive to it in the written form like I am in movies, but like this book made me feel sick to my stomach on several occasions, more than several. It's just nasty, and like some of the stuff that isn't even gory is so distasteful that it made my skin crawl. Like I walked away from this feeling like I needed a shower, and not in a good way. So that's a huge low point for me. Is, you know, I like to be transported to places that I wouldn't normally go, and I'm not opposed to flights of the macabre. But at the end of the day, I don't want to feel fucking weird and grossed out by the fact that I read something, and this book does that. I guess that makes it effective, but it's a really weird goal.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable. Like, I didn't mind that quite as much, but like there were definitely moments where I was like, this goes beyond anything I want to read.
Yeah.
And for me, the problem was more that those parts were too far and few between. You know, like if you're going to do that, do it, and don't faff around for the other 600 pages.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But anyway, my low point, my first low point, if you will, we didn't really mention this, but Mason Verger's big revenge plot revolves around some, what would we call them, bumbling Italian henchmen? Who call each other fuckboy so much. And I was like, what is this? A Run the Jewels record?
Oh.
Huh?
Oh.
Huh?
Oh.
Am I right?
It's true, and it's good. And I like it.
Huh? Huh? This guy knows what I'm talking about.
Nods solemnly. Okay, so I guess it's back to me.
Yeah.
Another low point. Oh, geez, there's so many. I would say, in addition to being really not up on gang names and things like that, this book also, you know, we mentioned earlier, it has that real hardcore, like, paramilitary kind of vibe where they talk about weapons a lot. One of the other things they talk about a lot is computers, and this guy has no idea what a fucking computer is or does. And if you're, you know, I was going to say if you're familiar with computers, but like you don't even have to be familiar with, if you've been to the library in the past 20 years, you'll find things in this book that will make you gasp. Like one of my favorites was he says something about you need to download, how does he describe it? Something about security footage, and you need to download it in your laptop. And I don't know. It's just all of these manglings of phrases. Like you could tell he went and looked up computer jargon. And as previously mentioned, yes, a zip disk does make an appearance. Oh, that's it. You need to download the zip disk into your laptop. That was what I really liked.
Nice. I mean, that does raise the very real possibility that several characters in this, a few years after the events of this novel, got $10 from iOmega in that huge class action that I think everybody in the country got $10 from.
I did. I had a Jazz.
I loved my zip drive. That thing was so fucking bomb.
When I went to school, zip drives were still the lingua franca of the computing industry. And oh boy, yeah, I had a jazz drive, which was cool because they held a gig, but it was also bad because nobody sold them.
Yeah, and like what I remember is like plugging my only 100 meg version, which was, you know, the cheapo one.
Yeah.
But it was like blue and chunky and it looked cool. Actually kind of looked like the Nintendo GameCube some years later, I guess. But like I was running it through the like parallel port.
Yep, you had to have a serial port actually because you needed a Terminator.
And it was just like so slow.
Yeah, very.
I'll just save my paper to it so I can carry it down to the computer lab to print it out. Maybe I'll go get a cup of coffee while that transfer is happening.
We at the school I went to, we had G4s when they first came out, the weird bubbly tower, but all of them had zip drives like crammed into the front, so it was like this weird boxy protrusion that just completely ruined the sleek lines of early 2000s Apple architecture.
Take that.
Which, by the way, I over our downtime, I watched Veronica Mars, which I had never seen before. Really enjoyed it. Both the story and the constant close-up shots of, say, 2004 era Mac hardware. It was great.
You're like, I don't think she can solve this crime with that round mouse.
Yeah, no, it had the round mouse. It had the iMacs that looked like a head on a little robot baby body.
Yeah. I loved those iMacs. They were so cute. They looked like a starburst with a screen.
Oh, this wasn't even those. It was, I think, the one generation later where it had like the base looked like a hemisphere. And
yes. It was like if the Pixar lamp was a computer, right?
Yeah, it's when they also made the round speakers, which feature prominently in that show as well. So if you ever want to get some consumer electronics nostalgia. Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
This is Jay and Collision, riff on consumer electronics, the segment that's burning up the airwaves and your hearts. I actually just wanted to and your comment about computers because this one jumped out at me. The Italian police had managed to find Dr. Lecter's computer at last. The Carabinieri were playing Super Mario on it in their recreation room. So what you're telling me is that the Italian police in the late 90s had emulation installed.
I've got this thing called the MAME.
Anyway, they're
playing it with their keyboard?
Yeah, exactly.
Or these guys have enough wizardry and skills to figure out how to use external drivers and some.
This is ASDW style, probably hitting space for jump, I would guess. Don't know what they've got A and B mapped to. Probably H and K.
There's also a scene where when Clarice is like going into the computer lab at the FBI or whatever to look up some sort of information about Hannibal, somebody has a screensaver on called Dangerous Creatures, and she knows it by name, which made me laugh. It's like she had Dangerous Creatures on, and then it talks about it kept occasionally making sounds. Who the fuck makes a screensaver that yells at you when you aren't expecting it? That just seems horrible.
I mean, you know, that's actually a searing portrait of how frustrated she is in her career. Because let me tell you something. If you know screensavers by name, that says to me that IT came by, took Solitaire off your machine.
Oh, yeah.
And so your procrastination technique is now just dicking around in the settings. Let's be honest.
I've been there.
We've all done it.
I mean, even to this day, like if I'm having a real non-productive day, I'll start figuring out like what kind of cool color codes I can make in my bash prompt in the terminal and stuff. Like, ooh, how can I make the drive prompt like in a cool ASCII art font?
Right.
Or like every time I log on, it gives me a randomized like cool message that's rainbow colored and piped through a weird font filter. Yeah, I had a real boring job for a while.
You know, so what we call that, the term of art is sharpening the saw.
That's what I tell my bosses, at least.
Exactly.
Like, it's really important that when I boot up the terminal, it shows like an ASCII drawing of a fat cat. It is my love language.
Yeah. Man, you got a lot of love languages. I like that. It is the kindler, gentler Jay. You're multilingual in the language of love.
That's true. Although I think fat cats do fall into the round animals category, to be fair. All right, so high points, we got to do it.
No, I just yes-anded your low point. I'm going low myself.
Okay.
And where's the lowest of the low place you can think of? That's right, it's the gutter. Jay, you might want to leave the room for this.
Oh no.
So this is our denouement. This is very much a book that is structured along the lines of your classical short story structure as posited by Edgar Allan Poe. So this is our denouement after the climax. But there's about to be another climax, if you know what I'm saying.
And I know exactly what
do.
part you're going to read now, too. Fuck.
Sometimes our couple dances at dinner time. Sometimes they do not finish dinner. Their relationship has a great deal to do with the penetration of Clarice Starling, which she avidly welcomes and encourages. It has much to do with the envelopment of Hannibal Lecter, far beyond the bounds of his experience. It is possible that Clarice Starling could frighten him. Sex is a splendid structure they add to every day.
Wow, thanks. I hate it.
So,
by the way, I was
what have
right.
you two been up to?
I was absolutely right. That was the thing that I thought you were going to read, and I was groaning as soon as you said the first sentence.
Oh, yeah.
And not in the way that Clarice and Hannibal are.
Whoa. A groaning that it is heavily implied keeps the servants up at night.
Folks, now, I'm going to say something a little off color here, so, please forgive me, but awooga.
I did think it was odd that as I was reading that, your bow tie was spinning, your glasses popped off, and your eyes bugged way out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know it's hard nowadays just to tell the truth, but we don't play into that. I will awooga anytime I want to. Okay, so last high point.
Yeah.
This will tell you exactly where I was coming from for looking up high points in this book.
Oh, Lord.
It would just be this sentence. Two sentences. Vandals with spray cans of paint had been in the building. An 8-foot phallus and testicles decorated the reception room wall.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to see that huge dick. That's my high point. Thank you.
That's a pretty fucking good one. Oh boy, I am having a little bit of difficulty finding a second high point. I think I'm just... Well, another high point was, of course, the cold open.
Yeah.
Right? That's just some really good writing. I think I'm just going to go another, super gross action scene, because I do think he's pretty good at that. And there's definitely some, sentences you will not read in any other book ever written.
Thank God.
The mighty eel thrashing, as long as Margot and thick, its festive skin flashing.
Oh.
Also it rhymes.
Yeah, I heard them ring jing jingling and ting ting tingling.
And if I don't want spoilers if you're thinking of reading this book, but does that eel go where you think it's going to go? The answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
So that some of the eel-based violence in this was something that I wasn't expecting and kind of enjoyed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. We've been talking about this crap for a while, so why don't we take a little break and then we'll come back and play some games.
Oh.
Welcome back. We've been talking about Hannibal. We'll continue to talk about Hannibal, but we've just been talking in a formless ramble. And in the words of the author, it's goddamn enough. That's a thing that people say.
Jay, did you just slap the handle of your gun, which is covered in skateboard tape for some reason.
Got to keep my grip when I do gun ollies.
Please do. So let's give this formless, seething mass some well-needed structure. That's right. It puts the structure in the podcast, or it gets the hose again.
Oh, no. That's right. Time for dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so dramatic readings. We're going to take parts of this book and read them to you, the listener. Collision, would you like to go first?
Oh, I would love to go first.
Excellent. I'm already cringing.
A souffle and glasses of Chateau de Quem before the fire in the drawing room, coffee ready on a side table at Starling's elbow. Fire dancing in the golden wine, its perfume over the deep tones of the burning log. They talked about teacups and time and the rule of disorder. And so I came to believe, Dr. Lecter was saying, that there had to be a place in the world for Misha, a prime place vacated for her. And I came to think, Clarice, that the best place in the world was yours. The firelight did not plumb the depths of her bodice as satisfactorily as the candlelight had done, but it was wonderful playing on the bones of her face. She considered a moment. Let me ask you this, Dr. Lecter. If a prime place in the world is required for Misha, and I'm not saying it isn't, what's the matter with your place? It's well occupied, and I know you would never deny her. She and I could be like sisters, and if, as you say, there's room in me for my father, why is there not room in you for Misha? Dr. Lecter seemed pleased, whether with the idea or with Starling's resource is impossible to say. Perhaps he felt a vague concern that he had built better than he knew. When she replaced her glass on the table beside her, she pushed off her coffee cup and it shattered on the hearth. She did not look down at it. Dr. Lecter watched the shards, and they were still. I don't think you have to make up your mind right this minute, Starling said. Her eyes and the cabochons shone in the firelight. A sigh from the fire, the warmth of the fire through her gown, and there came to Starling a passing memory. Dr. Lecter, so long ago, asking Senator Martin if she breastfed her daughter.
Oh,
A
gross.
jeweled moment turning in Starling's unnatural calm. For an instant, many windows in her mind aligned, and she saw far across her own experience. She said, Hannibal Lecter, did your mother feed you at her breast? Yes. Did you ever feel that you had to relinquish the breast to Misha? Did you ever feel you were required to give it up for her? A beat. I don't recall that, Clarice. If I gave it up, I did it gladly. Clarice Starling reached her cupped hand into the deep neckline of her gown and freed her breast, quickly peaky in the open air. You don't have to give up this one, she said.
Oh, fuck.
Looking always into his eyes, with her trigger finger, she took warm Chateau de Quem from her mouth, and a thick, sweet drop suspended from her nipple, like a golden cabochon, and trembled with her breathing. He came swiftly from his chair to her, went on a knee before her chair, and bent to her coral and cream in the firelight, his sleek, dark head.
That's the last sentence of the book, is it not?
No, not quite, but pretty close.
Wow, yeah. This is good stuff. I need to set up my dramatic reading here a little bit because there's something that we perhaps could have addressed in the previous segment, but we will address now, and that this book does something that I think, in my mind, when I hear it, I instantly think of a travelogue or maybe a screenplay, where our omniscient narrator dispenses from the past tense the book was written in, switches to the present tense, and addresses you, the reader.
Me?
Yes, you. And boy, it's obnoxious. I have a couple examples, just brief ones here before I get into the dramatic reading, but one of the chapters starts like this. Follow this handsome couple from the opera? All right, but very carefully. And then it goes on to describe the handsome couple leaving the opera. Mm-hmm. Or, once again, addressing the reader after an event happens in the book. What do you look at while you're making up your mind? Ours is not a reflective culture. We do not raise our eyes up to the hills. Most of the time, we decide ... blah blah blah. And I gotta hate it.
Yeah, that philosophy is also kind of entregue to me. It gets dumber as that sentence goes on because it's like we make all our decisions in the halls of big institutions, not out in the wood looking at hills like real men would, I guess. Yeah. Real men who like hot rods, vroom, because race car.
Fetch me my booming Mustang.
Yeah. Another thing that he does that is related to that is incredibly annoying. In previous books, when he would describe places, he would tend to use the present tense, which is a semi-effective trick for making it seem like these are real places with real real descriptions happening of them. It's a real you are there kind of feel.
Yeah.
But in this book, he stops being disciplined about it and does something that almost never bothers me. Like, I really don't like the kind of, fourth grade English teacher rule about don't switch tenses. But this does it so shoddily and so slipshoddily that it like makes me take the fourth grade English teacher's side. I'm going to read you an example. Mason reads slowly. The goggle over his single eye makes a tiny hiss twice a minute as it sprays moisture on his lidless eyeball and often fogs the lens. It takes him 20 minutes to get through the main article and the sidebar. Note that this is not a description of a place or of a customary thing.
Yeah.
This is an action that's happening in the timeline of the book. Next sentence. So it's like this is a thing we're following along with, not a thing that always is or a thing that customarily is. Put up the x-ray, he said when he had finished. And it's just like a jarring, pointless, and I'm just going to say it again. It's undisciplined.
Yeah, it's bad. And one thing, I'm getting ready to read my dramatic reading now, I swear, but I feel like what this
we needed to give people a little refractory period after the sheer hotness that they experienced earlier.
Yeah, there's something. But, we talked about that, and I think one thing that we haven't really talked about just in general is the prose of this book, because this book is so satisfied with itself. It becomes off-putting, as if everything else in the book wasn't enough already. But, so this next segment mixes that, or this next reading mixes that with the things we previously discussed, and this is a little aside from the plot to describe a torture museum. Now that ceaseless exposure has calloused us to the lewd and the vulgar, it is instructive to see what still seems wicked to us, what still slaps the clammy flab of our submissive consciousness hard enough to get our attention. In Florence, it was the exposition called Atrocious Torture Instruments, and it was here that Rinaldo Pazzi next encountered Dr. Fell. The exhibit, featuring more than 20 classic instruments of torture with extensive documentation, was mounted in the forbidding Forte del Belvedere, a 16th century Medici stronghold that guards the city's south wall. The expo opened to enormous, unexpected crowds. Excitement leaped like a trout in the public trousers. I'm not making this up, I swear. The scheduled run was a month. Atrocious Torture Instruments ran for 6 months, equaling the draw of the Uffizi Museum and outdrawing the Pitti Palace Museum. The promoters, 2 failed taxidermists who formerly got along by eating offal from the trophies they mounted, became millionaires and made a triumphal tour of Europe with their show, wearing their new tuxedos. The visitors came in couples mostly from all over Europe, taking advantage of the extended hours to file amongst the engines of pain and read carefully in any of 4 languages the provenance of the devices and how to use them. Illustrations by Dürer and others, along with contemporary diaries, enlightened the crowds on matters such as the finer points of wheeling. I'm just going to stop there because then it gets very gross. But yeah.
I love that so much. So is your favorite thing about it number one or number two? Number one, that he's writing in this like faux Gothic style now that we're in Italy and things are gross? Or is it number two, the same dingus who's lecturing us about the coarseness of our public taste, 2 paragraphs later describes the trout in the public trousers?
He leaps like a trout. It's both. I mean, if we're being fair. But yeah, this book loves to tell you how base and degraded you are as a member of modern society and then go on to portray base and degraded things in a thoughtless way. And at first it really upset me, and then gradually I was just like, wow, this is fucking stupid. I'm just going to roll with it. So.
Like, yeah, like you're lecturing me about my lack of taste and manners. Motherfucker, you're literally the guy who not only wrote 2 books about a psychiatrist who kills people, but then wrote a 3rd book where he hypnotizes an FBI agent into running away in a love affair with him.
And breastfeeding him. Can't forget that. Yeah.
I already have forgotten that.
That's probably for the better. You'll sleep better than I tonight. Okay, so now that we've finished that up, I guess let's roll on into here's something else here. Let's go ahead and do If This Were a Song.
Ooh.
The subject sounds of words, but not a melody and no rhythm at all. It's playing out with me, so we read all along. What is probably wrong? It got us think about what if this were a song? What would it sound like?
Okay, so we did this last time around. We're going to do it again. Where we think about the finer points of this book and try to identify which popular piece of music it might be, or maybe even a flight of fancy, if you will.
And I think you know I will.
Yeah. I'll go first, and I'm going to elaborate my thought process in this because I think it's very important. So this book is many things, but I think first and foremost, it's an incredibly pompous book that wants to shock you with its disregard for conventional mores. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and the obvious things that came to mind at first were like Marilyn Manson and stuff like that, but I feel like that's kind of well-trod ground for us, and I wanted to branch out a little bit. So then I started thinking about like Gwar and bands like that, or maybe Cannibal Corpse, stuff like that, and the more I thought about it, I don't think that really applies too, because fundamentally those groups were always in on their own joke to a certain extent. They knew what they were doing was ridiculous and over the top, and so I couldn't really go there. And then that started making me think about the rejection of contemporary values, and I started thinking about more like a G.G. Allen kind of thing. But that doesn't necessarily have the pomposity I was looking for either. It's more chaotic in its offensiveness, I feel like. And so the more I thought about it, the conclusion I came to is unfortunately something that will probably generate several hate mail pieces for us, but I'm just going to fucking say it. If this book were a song, it would be Sober by Tool.
Ooh. So something that really like freaks out the squares.
Yeah, and has a video with like meat pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Tool, talented musicians. There's no denying it. But there's a pomposity about them. Yep. Like, they made a record that's the same forwards and backwards. I mean, supposedly. I've never listened to it either way, but I've heard that's a thing. And, Sober is very much like a, hey, am I offending you yet kind of lyrical moment. So there's that too. That's the part that's going to generate hate mail. But, yeah, so that's what I came up with. If you like Tool, good for you. That's great, but not my jam. And for the previously stated reasons, I feel like it's a pretty decent analog for this book.
I think that's really fair. We are thinking along very similar lines. Because to me, this is the musical equivalent of this book would be something like a 17-minute wet fart noise. But
jazz fart. Jazz fart.
You're there.
Yeah.
But that somehow also thinks it's better than you.
Oh, no.
And smarter than you. So if this book were a song, it would be by Frank Zappa.
God damn it. As soon as I said jazz fart, I was like, he's actually going to say Zappa.
He's actually going to go to Zappa. And more specifically, the Frank Zappa song Porn Wars, off of Frank Zappa Meets the Mothers of Prevention, which is a 12-minute plus sound collage he put together, mostly of his own testimony in front of Congress about the PMRC, about labeling records as explicit.
Now, longtime listeners will know this pains me to the core because while I'm not a huge fan of Zappa's music, I am a huge fan of his autobiography, and I think that he was a very interesting guy in many ways. But you're right. So there's only so much I can say about that.
But like, I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody. Like, why do I know that song exists, you might ask? Well, the answer is quite simple. I owned the cassette in high school. So yeah, I had my Zappa moment. Like, I'm not too biggity to admit it.
And if you're one of the, if you're not one of the 3 or 4 people who recognize the jazz fart and then the immediate digression into laughter, I suggest Googling jazz fart Frank Zappa. It's a brilliant little Best Show bit.
I might even remember to put it in the show notes.
Yeah. It's just one of those little moments that makes you realize that you really enjoy something, and it's not just for me, because I know for a fact that on SoundCloud somebody has excerpted, well, whatever the fuck, they've cut out the 5 to 10 second segment of a live performance of the fictional song Jazz Fart. So it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about if it were a song,
and if you really want to just like freak out the squares, but also open up both your mind and your third eye, listen to Sober and Porn Wars at the same time, one in each channel.
Ooh. And watch The Wizard of Oz at the same time.
Oh yeah, it syncs beautifully.
Okay, so let's do one more, I guess. Let's do Biggest Surprise.
Never run empty, we're vigorous guys. As the show runs longer and vigorous size. Got them hungry minds and the rigorous eyes. Let us tell you about this fucking book's biggest surprise.
Hey, wow, I'm shocked and surprised. So let's tell them why. This is our biggest surprise about the book that we just read. Would you like to go first?
Yeah. And oddly, we've touched on some of the most surprising elements before, like, for example, Hannibal Lecter being a car guy now. But yeah, no, I have to tell you, I at no point expected this book to end with Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter doing the Monster Mash. Like, I just did not see that coming.
No, I didn't either, and in fact, that was my original pick. So I'm flailing right now to think of something, and I'm just gonna, I guess, kind of a larger extrapolation of that. And a lot of this owes to my unfamiliarity with the series. I knew Hannibal Lecter was always something of an anti-hero, I guess. In all of the stuff that I've consumed that parody this or refer to it, it's pretty obvious. Like, I know he's not the serial killer in the movie, and that he actually helps Clarice find the serial killer, but he's still like a bad guy, and you're not supposed to like him. So I thought,
right.
My biggest surprise reading this book is that the guy who writes it seems to think he's a sympathetic character.
So, yeah, that's a huge surprise, because in the previous book, he is the serial killer. He's basically Moriarty helping people catch, like, lesser criminals for reasons of
I knew
his
he
own.
Was a serial killer. I knew he wasn't Buffalo Bill, I guess, is the villain of the movie.
Yeah. Exactly. But, especially there's this long scene where he's on an airplane with the plebs, and he hates it. And he doesn't like the smells, and he doesn't like the fact that there's a baby in the aisle that he's in, and the baby has the temerity to poop, and he doesn't like that either. And you definitely feel like you're supposed to be like, oh man, being on an airplane, that sucks.
He even has a touching moment with a child seated next to him in that same section, and I think that's when it clicked, like, oh, I'm supposed to like this guy.
Yeah,
and there's
that's
another
a swerve
part. One of his victims is a poacher.
Yeah.
That he shoots with a crossbow and then eats, and you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, that guy got what he was coming to him or whatever. And like, admittedly, like, I think hunting is pretty brutal, and hunting against regulations, why, man, I don't like lawbreakers. Wink, wink. But by no means is his crime worthy, I think, of, being literally disemboweled, having his lungs pulled out through his back, which is described in great detail. It's just kind of, it's very extra.
Yeah.
I'm not here for it. I don't like. I guess I would say his vibe is all wrong.
The vibes are off for sure. I think if I were to encounter Hannibal Lecter, I would simply have to tell him, I'm going to need you to take 15 to 18% off of it over there, big guy.
Yeah.
Just straight up. I'm sorry. I got to say it.
When it comes to Hannibal, folks, I can't even.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at, for sure. This has been an enlightening discussion about A, Hannibal, and B, what TikTok slang I'm familiar with.
All of which gets filtered through. Yeah, I'm at 8 removes and probably 9 generations behind. I don't think anybody has said can't even since 2008.
No, me neither.
Sadly.
But I am manifesting.
Are you?
That's world where I don't have to read this book. And hey, it happened.
This book definitely left me wishing for a better world, but I am unable to even.
Can we start a thing? The I don't even own a television, don't read Hannibal challenge. Submit your videos of you doing anything but reading Hannibal.
Yeah, please do not flush this down a high school toilet. That's bad for the plumbing. It's 500 and some pages long. It'll just wreck a bunch of people's day. You don't need to do that. Yeah, here's a good challenge. If you see this in a little free library, you know what you could do? You could take it out of the little free library and put it in the little free recycling bin.
Yeah, I'm going to start carrying around better books. And when I see that, I will make the switch. The hot swap, if you will.
Ooh, I like that idea quite a bit, and I'm gonna confess that I will not be actually doing this. I will be taking my copy of this down to the little free library because there's never anything good in it, and at least it isn't a 15-year-old business book or software manual.
Hey, once I found a novel that was a cozy mystery about cider in one of those. So every now and then, the promises do come true.
You may have access to slightly better ones than the flats of Oakland, I have to confess.
Yeah, that's true. I do live around a lot of bougie motherfuckers.
I would love to know which one of your neighbors is reading cozy mysteries about cider.
There were 4 or 5 of them, so my initial hypothesis is someone died.
Yeah, that's when you go to the thrift store and you see a suspiciously well-defined collection, you're like, oh man, somebody either died or got broke up with.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember once, little tangent here. When I was 14 or 15, I went to the Goodwill because that was one of my favorite things to do as a kid. Cheap way to have fun.
Hell yeah.
Kids, do it.
Yeah.
And I noticed a section on the t-shirt rack that was 10 or 12 punk rock t-shirts.
Oh.
And none of them were necessarily bands I really liked, but I instantly started thinking about why would someone donate all of their punk rock t-shirts? Some of them were still really new. And then I had the realization oh, he's either dead or in trouble. And I got really sad.
Yeah. Jimmy went to rehab.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
Jimmy got sent to military school.
Yeah, exactly.
Mom finally pulled the trigger.
Son, you're not going to wear that revolting cock shirt in military school.
Dad!
Anyway, let's take another little break and come back with something that isn't Hannibal.
Anything.
Yeah. Finally, we're done talking about Hannibal. We're going to talk about some other stuff, and we're going to open up our denouement, as it will, with...
I didn't agree to that. I thought we were saving that for the Patreon, Jay.
Yes, some explicit talk of breastfeeding again. This is your premium destination for adult baby lifestyles, and we're here to deliver.
Welcome to season 2.
Things have changed. I said earlier, my life has changed a lot. I've been through some big changes, and one of them is that I'm now wearing diapers. Enjoy.
And neither of us wear shoes when we record.
Nope. Anyway, none of that is true. And we're
going to get letters.
We're going to recommend things that you should put in your brain that aren't this. Yeah. Here's a song.
Not only venom and spite, sometimes with sweetness and light, and we always end the episode by telling you
I still feel moderately ashamed of myself for making those jokes. Anyway, this is the part of the show where we talk about things that we actually enjoyed, and I've actually been very excited about recommending this just because I'm not a huge fan in general of humor books or comedy books, as it were. Generally, they kind of go right over my head unless it's something way over the top and way more involved than it has any right to be. And folks, I've found it.
Uh-oh.
Some of you may know on this show, in this house, we stand for Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that also means following the actors in their other projects. They're non-problematic projects, let's say. I'm not going to go watch the IT Crowd because I know it's horrible and I know all about the asshole who made it. However, Richard Ayoade, is that how you say it? Ayoade? Richard Ayoade?
That's a good question.
I think
don't
that
know.
is it. I've watched a bunch of his segments on talk shows. Very, very funny guy. He played Dean on Dark Place.
Right.
And I discovered when I was just randomly on YouTube watching a bunch of his appearances on British chat shows that he's released several books. He's written and had them published. And one of these that I found is called Ayoade on Top. And it is I'd say close to 150-page scholarly look at the movie from, I want to say, 1997, starring Gwyneth Paltrow, about airline hostesses, called View from the Top. Whoa. And this book is, I mean, if you're familiar with Garth Marenghi or you're familiar with Ayoade, you know he has a very dry comedic style. And this book is, for all intents and purposes, exactly what I just said. It's a scholarly dissection of this completely horrible movie that everybody else forgot about. And I'm not saying, like, you hear that and you think like, oh, that's a clever device that he's going to use to just tell unrelated jokes or talk about his life. It's not that, folks. It's literally every chapter is like a detailed deep dive into a scene of the movie. I have just a brief example so you'll understand how much I like about this.
Hit me.
Here we go. So we don't normally do dramatic readings for recommendations, but I'm going to do one here because it's good.
It's a little extra treat for you.
In a masterstroke of mise en scene, the director Barretto places Ted in the doorway. On his right, screen left, Donna's poster of the Arc de Triomphe. On his left, screen right, a revelatory piece of art direction. A clock whose face looks like the front of a plane. 2 propeller-bearing wings jut from the circular front. 2 wheels angle out below. The staging renders Ted as the unwitting barrier between Donna in flight, represented by the novelty clock, and her destination, Paris First Class International, as represented by the Arc de Triomphe. He's also kind of blocking the door, which is annoying.
What the fuck?
If you want to read 150 pages of that, Ayoade on Top, check it out. That's spelled Ayaode, in case I'm mangling it.
Well, yeah, it'll be listed in the show notes as well. So, describe for us your own familiarity with the film under discussion prior to the book.
I've never seen it.
And describe your desire to see the film now that you have tasted the delights.
Now I want to see it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I know it's going to be awful, but after reading this, it's like when you listen to a bad movie podcast and you're like, oh, I need to go watch that again. Except for me, it will be the first time.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say is like, I really hope that some people out there understand how many movies I personally have watched just because they fucking did it on the Flophouse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that sounds great.
If you could imagine a show like, like that, but instead of like rejecting the premise or mocking the premise, they just went all in on pretending it was genius. That's what this book is. And no joke should ever be carried this far. And that's what makes it amazing to me. So yeah, check it out.
Sounds good. I'm going to go like basically as far away from that as possible. We were talking a little off air. Reading's not been the easiest thing for this whole brainium lately. So I am going to recommend a movie film. It is from 2016. I don't think I've recommended it before, but maybe I did. It's called Werewolf. It is not about werewolves. It is, in fact, about poor people in Canada. And like most things about poor people, a kind of unsparing, detailed, honest look will fuck your shit right up. And that's what this book does. It's got a little bit of maybe Killer of Sheep in it, I would say. A couple of other, things. And yeah, it's short. It is available on the Criterion channel, I believe. That's where I watched it. So I'm a fan of cinema, you could say. But yeah, it was very, very good, and kind of a downer. And who doesn't need more downers in their lives right now?
Sometimes it's good to have a well-articulated downer instead of, the vague, unformed downer we've all been living through.
Right, yeah, exactly. Oh, this is like my life, but way worse, and they're complaining less.
Yeah. And their problems are real. How about that?
Yeah.
Hey, no, we're all dealing with some real shit right now. But some people are getting it harder than others. So.
That's very true. At least my lawnmower works.
Yeah.
That will make sense if you watch the film.
Ooh.
Yeah. Should we hear from our legion of devoted fan?
I thought you were going to say Legion of Doom, and I would like to hear about how something is or is not a rush.
Yeah, I was going to say those gentlemen not known for having the most to say, in my experience.
Oh, it's like wiping a booger out of my nose. That's the kind of shit that I remember them saying a bunch, is like things that were supposed to sound tough, but were actually like really juvenile. Like, Heart Foundation, I should call you the Fart Foundation. What a rush. Anyway.
I mean, you got to admit, got him.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Okay.
Rack him.
So here's some letters.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
So this one is from Chris, fake last name. Hello. Great to hear you both after your hiatus. Having heard your latest on hair metal, I thought you may find this documentary of interest. Not hair metal, as far as I know, having lived through but not been a fan, but highly entertaining. That documentary that he sent the link through for was Anvil, the story of Anvil. And so I thought I wanted to do, since that built on the last episode, that is to say the first episode of season 2, I wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about Anvil, the story of Anvil. Jay, have you seen Anvil, the story of Anvil?
I have. I watched it probably early 2000s when I was really obsessed with the mockumentary format, and I watched it thinking it was going to be that because I had heard it compared frequently to Spinal Tap. And it is not that, but it's still very entertaining in a very different way.
Yeah. So for those who don't know about it, Anvil is the story of a Canadian heavy metal band called, no points for guessing, Anvil.
Oh, wow. I just made a Dumb Heart Foundation joke, and now we're talking about Canadian anvils.
Oh, there you go. Hammer, Anvil, Tongs, and Greg. Oh, it was Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He was briefly aligned with them, but I was thinking of Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
Right.
So, yeah.
Which is actually just kind of a weird nickname.
Not when you look at the man.
Yeah, well,
He was
fair.
very, very square.
Right. You can bounce things off me, I guess. Anywho, so it is the story of this band who, never quite cracked the big time, right? And 20 years later are still, still kind of cracking away at it with the two leading members of the band and a rotating cast of extras. And it is good, and it's very heartfelt. And when I saw it, I don't know why, but I was completely convinced that it was not a mockumentary, but a hoax.
Oh, wow.
I was completely convinced. And I don't, again, no idea why. Still kind of half believe that it might be a
There's
hoax.
just so many connections and so many just barely missed moments that at least for me, I was like, oh, I would have had to have heard of these guys at some point. But I hadn't until I saw the movie, and maybe that contributed to your hoax theory.
I think so. I mean, I think I kind of like this will shock anyone who's heard me talk for even 4 seconds, but I like to think I would have known about that had it been around at the time.
It is, though. They're like every single one of your favorite bands, if you listen to 80s metal or 90s metal, they've opened for, they were friends with, and they just never could do it. Honestly, I'm going to say something controversial.
It's
because they weren't very good. But, yeah. Sorry, Anvil fans, both of you.
Lips, if you're listening, I don't know as I agree with Jay on this one. Okay. I think you're every bit as good as bands who were much more successful, most of whom we heard about in last time's episode.
I was gonna rewatch it because you had actually encouraged me to brush up on Anvil,
Right.
And then I realized watching that as a 42-year-old,
Yeah.
it would hit a lot different. Like when I was in my 20s and I watched it, I was like, look at these losers. They tried so hard and they didn't make it. I'm definitely going to be a rock star. And I feel like watching it now, I'd be like, oh, look, it's my failures writ large. So I didn't want to go back and revisit it. For sure.
Yeah, I don't... Oddly, I didn't even have the self-awareness to understand the root of my absolute lack of desire to rewatch it. Nope, just wanted to discuss it for 40 seconds on a podcast. Anyway, check that one off the old Bujo.
Yeah, it's a good movie, though. If you haven't seen it at home and you're looking for a documentary about kind of silly men, it's good.
Not a... Yeah, it will remind you that, people can have hearts even when they're grumpy and maybe a little funny looking.
Yeah, if you liked American Movie, also, it's pretty much that, but music, so...
Yeah, now that I rewatched recently, and oh boy, what a fucking downer.
Yeah.
Anywho, so this letter is from Ja Banana, or to put it a different way, Ja fake last name.
Yeah.
And it goes like this. Hi, Collision and Jay. I'm listening to your new episode, and it's so good to hear you guys. I need the laughs. I have 2 copies of a mystery book about loggers. And yes, the title is a terrible pun. Don't want to spoil anything. But I can say that it sure is something. Just wow. I'd love to send them to you. Can I get the address? Usually the answer is no. I am going to reply to this with a yes. And why? Because it's loggers and not lumberjacks.
Yeah, can we take a second here? Because I'd like to... Let's put on our thinking caps. Let's
Yeah,
figure out what the log pun
What's
would
the
be.
pun going to be? Okay.
I know this isn't the name of the book, but this is what I wish it was.
Okay.
Log off.
Ooh, wow! That you didn't have to think about that one that hard. Okay, log off is good. I was thinking maybe something more like the big cut down.
Ooh, that's probably more likely.
Like
Mine would be about loggers who need to stop using Twitter.
it's a real problem.
It is. These loggers today and their Twitter and their phones. Everywhere you look, there's a logger not paying attention where they're walking.
Yeah, exactly. They get the phone in one hand and a running chainsaw in the other. That's just not safe.
Hey, you guys see this Insta? Vroom. And as we all know, the only thing you can do other than chainsaw when you're holding a chainsaw is perform hair metal, as we mentioned last week. So.
You can juggle.
Oh.
But you need multiple for that.
Yeah, and we did not recommend that. I don't want to get like a Beavis and Butthead situation going on.
No, that would be terrible. Except we might MTV, if you want to back the dump truck of money up to our house and like have 1.5 hour a day that's not ridiculousness. Yeah, I've thought before about how to port this fine program of ours to television, and no, that's not a joke. Get at us. Do I need to be on camera? No, I don't. Do I need to be a producer and scrape almost all the profits? Yes, I do.
We can hire people who look like us but more attractive. I already know who mine would be.
I will brainstorm it.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's a Spanish actor named Manolo Solo. Yeah, he looks a lot like me.
Great name.
Yeah.
I would go a little bit different. Probably replace me. We don't need another pale male on the show, certainly. How about Zendaya? What's she doing right now?
That's a good call. She was great in Dune.
Yeah, I'm sure she was. I haven't had the pleasure yet. Great in the first Spider-Man movie. Didn't have enough to do in the second, I thought.
Yeah.
Also great in
the
Euphoria.
third Spider-Man movie, if we're being honest here. But yeah.
Oh, you're making my brain hurt. Yeah, boy, I just can't wait to get back to the reboot there. You know, like what's this kid about? What makes him tick? Is there some sort of primal scene early in his life that sets him on his path? You know, to say, another guy I wondered that about. This Batman fellow, what's his deal?
I was just going to make the joke, and I'm sorry to make your work even harder here for show notes, but there's a young person, and this is firmly like, sometimes lately I've been like, I don't even want to try to be entertaining anymore because not millennials, Generation Z is so good at comedy. They're so much funnier than I could ever be. There's a young fella on Twitter, I believe he goes by Saul Scribbles, who just makes weird fake videos of Parappa the Rapper levels, and one of them involves Batman in a gruff voice saying, "This is where I watched my parents die, Parappa," and then Parappa goes, "This is where you watched your parents die."
God.
So yeah, check that out. Just look for Google. This is where I watched my parents die, Parappa. You'll find it.
Yeah.
There's also another one about Daffy Duck slamming his penis in a car door.
We've all been there, am I right?
Yeah.
You know that wouldn't happen to Daffy if he'd throw on some damn trousers.
It's true.
Like,
I feel this way about many cartoon characters.
Daffy, Donald, Porky Pig. Like, there's a whole panoply of pantslessness out there in the cartoon universe.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where I know for a fact that I have several friends who refer to shirt cocking as Daffy Ducking. So that's a thing.
I usually will say Porky Pigging just because there's not that many people I feel comfortable saying shirt cocking to.
It's good. Yeah, that's a good point. So we've heard from you. You've heard from us.
If you'd like to write in to tell us, was Hannibal Lecter suckling at the teat of Clarice Starling more or less upsetting than me saying shirt cocking repeatedly, you can do so at idon'tevenowna@gmail.com.
So everyone, thanks for listening. It's great to be back. It's not great to be reading Hannibal, but we don't have to do that ever again.
Yeah, join us for our next exciting book, which, if it's anything like Hannibal, which will be like, I don't know, me reading a piss-soaked chick tract. I don't know.
I've got some ideas, but we'll talk about that off microphone. And to everyone else, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time around.
We'll see you in 2 and 2.
Oh, you know what this book did have a lot of, though? Crabs. It did. It describes Mason, one of his hands, as being like an albino spider crab.
Oh yeah, his hand is always scuttling across the blanket to his mouse or whatever.
Yeah. So until next time, hand the crab.
Hand the crab whatever the crab wants. The crab deserves a nice thing.